Hey, hello everybody. Forgot to add myself to the stage. Good afternoon. Welcome to the second edition of Code Break. I am Raymond Camden. Hope that you are having a good day. And if you are out there, if you could please just say hi in the comments, just so I can make sure that there's actually somebody out there, I would really, really appreciate it. Um, so in today's session, we're going to talk about one of my most favorite topics, and that is games. And by the way, thank you, Bob. Now I know that I'm being heard and I'm not going crazy. Thank you. I'm talking about games. If you attended my last session, I talked about how I am a big gamer and I was playing video games probably all of my life. Like I started on the Atari 2600 when my mother got a Apple IIe. I got big into computer gaming. Did a lot of time with Ultima, one, two, three, four, and five. Bard's Tale as well. But there was something. Uh, there was a company that was active back in those early days that was really really cool, and that company was called Infocom. And Infocom created text-based adventures. So the idea is that there was no graphics at all; it was just text, and you would read, and then you would use natural language to work with the game. So you would type things like "go north," "go south," "open door," "look at table," whatever. And because it was all text based, it relied on good writing, which typically it had. And there was a lot that your brain would just kind of, naturally put into it. These were really fun games. And by the way, I should point out, and I forgot to say this earlier, I apologize. I actually have a sponsor, a prize sponsor for this particular session, hopefully more going forward. That sponsor is Algolia. Algolia is a search service provider where you can give them a copy of your content via SDK, via API, and they have an API that provides a really good search service. I've been using it on my blog for 3+ years, and it works really, really well. And in fact, my blog has something like 7,000 or near 7,000 pieces of content, and I'm still within their free tier. So I absolutely recommend them, and I thank them for giving me a prize because I'm going to ask a trivia question in a few seconds here, actually, and they will be providing the prize. So we'll see how many classic gamers are in the room or how many old people like me are in the room. But Infocom, that I was talking about, text-based adventurers, the most famous game they made and the one that you possibly would have heard of is a game called Zork. And it was kind of a classic adventure game, those basic tropes. And the prize that I want to give away today is if somebody could tell me in chat what happened in Zork if it got dark, then you will win the prize. And I'm going to keep glancing over here at my chat to see if anybody knows what happens in the dark in a Zork game. But they had these kind of fun adventure games, kind of light and easy. They also had some pretty serious games as well, thought-provoking games like Trinity, that was based on nuclear testing. They had a game called A Mind Forever Voyaging, which I think would be an incredible episode of Black Mirror if somebody were ever to create it. But it really kind of resonated with me how much could be done with just text. So fast forward a couple of years later, I'm in college. These text-based adventure games actually existed on the internet in things called MUDs, multi-user dungeon or multi-user domain. Basically, text-based games that were multiplayer, so you could talk to people, meet people. I met at least one girlfriend that way. Um, and also do role-playing stuff as well because it was real time as well, which is kind of cool. So that is something that sparked my interest, especially since they had this concept of, or most of the MUDs did, where you would reach a certain level, let's say level 20, and then you were done. Like you beat the game. Except that they now allowed you to edit the game and you could, actually build your own little part of the greater world. Create your own monsters, create your own quests, stuff like that. Which is not something possible really in most gaming today, but it's absolutely fascinating. This idea of, you beat the world, now you get to add to the world. And in fact, some of the code that I am most proud of is code that I wrote for MUDs back in the early 90s, uh, probably long gone. And, Brian had a good point. You should probably add it to let, yeah. So my trivia question was in Zork, probably other games too. What happens if you are in the dark? Thank you, Brian. That's a good idea. All right, and we'll see who actually answers, if anybody. If not, I'll just hold on to the prize till next time, and I will tell you the answer. Um, but anyway, so text games, I can really get into it. And in fact, let me start sharing my screen here. Add the stage. All right, so there have been a couple of text games over the last couple of years that you might find interesting, and I know I have spent way too long on them. One of them is a dark room, and let me make this a little bigger on screen here. And literally, like this is the whole game, right? There's one button to click, and you could do that. And what happens is that this little simple game with very minimal text begins to change, begins to add things, gets to add different aspects, and it grows and grows. And it's really, really fascinating what is done with the medium here. Another game is Universal Paperclips, which is about paperclips, and it's a clicker game, and you click a button, so like, make paperclip. And again, this game just it adds more and more mechanisms and things to do. Just kind of it goes crazy in terms of what it adds. Um, like the only like example I could even imagine is like imagine you spent hours playing Gran Turismo or racing game, and then you hit a certain point, and all of a sudden now it's an open world action RPG, and then it switches to a card game. That's kind of what it's like. So web-based games that are text-based are definitely out there. There's some great ones. I have spent way too many hours on paperclips, so I'm gonna tab away from this right now, and I'm gonna show you actually one that I made called Idle Fleet, and that you can find right now. I built this a couple of years ago. It's built on Vue.js, and it's a clicker game. And basic idea is you have a ship and you send it out, and it takes a random amount of time. It comes back with a random amount of money. And then as you keep clicking and you get more money, you can buy more ships. And then as you play, more and more things open up. And in fact, I had forgotten what I built in the game. So it was kind of a fun surprise. And it's entirely possible that when I was setting up this browser today with tabs and stuff to show you that I started to play and I got addicted again. And it's actually in a torn out browser tab right now, but we're not going to do that. If I open that up, I am not going to come back. You will lose me to that clicking game. And yeah, no. But the source code for all this is available for you to play with if you want. So, what I would like to do today is actually build a game. Now, I've obviously here's one that I've built. I've done this a couple of times over the years. Um, as a gamer, I think it's just natural. Like you think, hey, what if I could build my own thing? And I knew that I would never have the programming skills to do like lots of graphics or the artistic skills to do lots of graphics and stuff like that. So I kind of gravitated more towards, stuff like this where it's pure text and you could click and just do things. And that's what I want to do today. Actually, with y'all, I want to build a game. One quick note. Let me get back to my banners. Yes, and I forgot to hide my other banner. Brian did warn me on that. Sorry, Brian. Um, I do have a repository for Codebreak, and the code that I'm working on here today is going to go up in here. So if you're watching the recording and want to just download the bits and actually see it, you can do so. But with that said, let me hide the banner. Didn't forget this time. And go to code. And can I increase the font size? Why, yes, I can. MySQL Shorts. Something tells me that's not your real name, and that's all right. But let's get this a little bigger. Home saw like that. So before I started building this game, let me kind of talk about some things that you want to keep in mind. So Uh, as a gamer, as someone who likes fantasy, science fiction, and all that, I have definitely been around the Dungeons and Dragons space, and there's something that's enticing about having a dragon and by putting numbers to it, right? So that's why I gravitated towards RPGs and things like that, and I have made attempts at building RPGs, and I remember thinking, maybe I could build something simple like Final Fantasy One. And what's interesting is that as soon as you start thinking about all the meta stuff around a game, it just gets more and more complex, right? So you have a title screen, you have a character inventory screen, you have a save screen. There's all these other things that are not quite as fun as imagining a monster. In fact, the last time I worked on an RPG, I built just the utility methods because I decided I wasn't actually going to build the game. I wanted to build, for example, a generic way to create monsters of different styles and stuff like that. And I did that, man. I wanted to build a simple dice utility, and I built that. I built the fun stuff, and I left it at that, which is fun. Robert, I see you're asking about the GitHub URL. Remind me at the end, and I'll definitely share it again. So we're going to start really, really, really simple. And we're not going to use a framework. Typically, for a simple web application, I would use Alpine. I really like Alpine JS. It's like a modern jQuery. And if I was doing anything more than 10 or 20 lines of JavaScript, and I imagine we'll hit that, I would definitely put Alpine in. But as someone who educates, teaches, presents, and all that, I don't like to throw too much at you at one time. So I don't want to assume you know Alpine. I don't want to teach Alpine in this particular class. So we're going to do just straight vanilla JavaScript. And the game that we're going to do to keep it incredibly simple and hopefully get done in the next 20 or so minutes is going to be rock, papers, scissors. It's not the way it's, I don't know how to spell scissors. All right, there we go. I'm an English major as well. So, in case you don't know how to play rock, paper, scissors, the basic idea is you have two people and they face each other and they take their fists and they go 1, 2, 3, and they pick something and they either pick scissors. I'm trying to make that good for the webcam, rock, or paper, with the idea that scissors cuts paper, paper covers rock, rock breaks scissors, essentially. So incredibly simple. And me and my kids will do it, and you play, you play, and you play. No real strategy, unless you're my youngest, who tends to always pick rock, and I have to remind him to kind of shake it up or randomize it a bit. Incredibly simple, but what it does is it makes the kind of meta part of building this game somewhat simpler. So, what I'm going to do for this game is basically have two different states. There's going to be an initial state of when you go into the game where it says, "Hey, welcome to RPS. Here are the rules, blah, blah, blah. Click to begin." And then we're going to have the actual game itself where I will let you pick and the computer will pick and then we'll say who wins. And that's it. So that keeps it relatively simple. But depending on how much time we have, we could potentially bake in a bit more. So I am starting here, and I'm going to live code, which terrifies the heck out of me. It shouldn't. I've got 30 years, well, even as a kid, probably 40 years of programming experience. And after failing certain technical interviews because I didn't use the right algorithm, my confidence in my own code is like zero. And I blog all the time, but typically, I've rewritten the code once or twice. So hopefully, I don't embarrass myself too much. But let's get started. So I mentioned two states, and I'm going to do that with two div classes or two div tags, I should say. And y'all let me know if that text is too small. Because these two divs are both going to represent a game state, I kind of figure they'll have the same class, and I'll call it game state. Class equals game state. And I will give them specific IDs representing what they do. So we'll call one intro state, and we'll call the second ID equals, and I don't want to say game state because it's the same as the class. I'll say play state. Saw like that, a little bit of intro text. This is the intro. We can make it nicer later. This is the game. And just to make sure things are working, let me go on my terminal. Oh, hello. And all I'm doing here is running a local web server. I'm just checking for comments. And 8080. So let's go localhost 8080. And there we go. Let's make that bigger so y'all can actually see. Let's go one more time. All right. I'm going to do a little bit of CSS. First, I'm going to add my link rel equals style sheet href equals app.css. By the way, if you read my blog, typically when I do like a little web demo, I'll have everything on one page. And I do that so that we can focus on learning X, whatever X may be, and you're not going back and forth between multiple files. I just find that easier to read, quicker to get the point across, etc. For this, I'm actually going to break out my CSS and I'm going to break out my JavaScript. So we'll save this and we will add app.css. And the one thing I'm going to do at first is I'm going to go ahead and automatically hide the game state. I know later on I'm going to use JavaScript to hide the intro state and show the play state. But I know when you first hit the page, you should not see the fact that you are playing the game. So we will do play state display none. Save it and come back and reload. And I should see this is the intro. And I'm going to go ahead and close these other tabs because they are annoying me. Like that. All right. So I am going to go ahead and write a little bit of like decent text. Mostly because I want to get a good idea visually of like how the instructions are going to look. Certainly, this is something I think in like a real game, if I was publishing this live, I'd probably iterate and edit and write some words, etc. So I don't think this will be my final step, but we will get something decent on here. Rock, paper, scissors. And here we go. So we'll say, in this game, you will choose between rock, paper, or scissors. Yes, I do know how to spell. I'm going to misspell that every time. In a high stakes, action packed game where anything can happen, really only one thing can happen. You can win or lose. All right. So we will provide a little bit of instruction. The winner of the game is based on what you choose. If you pick rock And let's actually make this. This is me live coding and make a set of bullet points. If you pick rock and the computer picks paper, you lose. All right, and we will just do 6 of these, right? Because we have 6 states. If you pick rock and the computer picks scissors, you win. All right, so then there is rock, paper, and scissors. And we have one more. All right, we are almost there, I promise. You pick paper and the computer picks scissors, you lose. If you pick paper and the computer picks rock, you win. You pick scissors and the computer picks rock, you win. And the last one, if you pick scissors and the computer picks paper, wait, lose, win, lose, win. Let's make this consistent. You lose. If you pick scissors and the computer picks rock, yes. You pick scissors, computer picks paper, you win. All right. So we could do more here. Let's just take a look, see what we got. All right. And I could definitely pick a better font. I could do some margins, stuff like that. But that is all right. What I want to do is add my button that is going to start the game. Do a little bit of visual separation there, like so. And we go back and we reload and boom. So we have the first state done. Now, what we need to do is start using some JavaScript such that we can hit that button and switch over to the next state and actually start running the game. Now, what I'm thinking is that when you start the game, we're going to keep you in the game forever or until you reload. So I don't have to worry about going back. We're going to switch over the view. We're going to render the game and have you play it and then render the result. And then after that, let you hit something such that you can keep playing. So let's actually get our JavaScript in. Script source equals app.js. This is why I don't live code typically. And but I better get used to it, right? So I mentioned that I'm not using any framework. I'm going to do everything vanilla JavaScript. So the first thing I'm going to do is add an event listener for DOM content loaded. And we will make it run init like this. And actually, I don't know if I even need async, but I'm just going to do it anyway, just to be safe. No, don't suggest any code for me. I'm fine. And because I am a sucker for doing a lot of testing, I will just leave me a quick console.log so I know that's actually running. This is incredibly simple. This has to work, right? But I like to be sure. And open up console and I'll make that a little bit bigger. And you can see that it definitely did init. Cool. So I need to add a listener to that button. Typically, I would grab access to that button and store that in a variable. But again, because we're going to leave this state and never come back again, I don't need to keep a reference to that button. So I'm going to do document.query selector, and I called it start game, and add an event listener, click, and we'll call it start game. Why not? I believe that's the Amazon Code Whisperer in there. I installed it, haven't used it a lot recently, but I may need to turn that off because it's getting a little bit in my face. So we will build start game. And what this needs to do is this needs to hide the state, the first thing. Oh, that is really, really annoying. You know what? Let's kill that right now. Let's see, AWS Toolkit. We're just going to disable you and reload. All right, please stop trying to help me. Okay, so again, we need to hide the initial state and then do whatever it takes to actually start the game. But I'm going to start simply by finding that initial state, which was intro state, and hiding it. So if I remember correctly, I'm trying to remember how to modify the style on the fly with JavaScript. I've only done this a couple times. I don't remember exactly how to do it, so I'll show you what I do, which is MDN JavaScript change CSS. We'll change it on the fly. And if I remember, style property, I believe you can modify them using bracket notation. Yeah. So if I want to change the display, let's go back to code. I'm going to say, and what was that again? And by the way, normally when I code, I have my Visual Studio Code on the left, and I have my browser on the right. So I'm not doing all this alt tabbing back and forth and losing as much context. But with the smaller resolution here, we have to get by with what we get by. So it's the style property. And actually, you know what? Let's try this here. Document that query selector, intro state. That should match that. I'll make this a little bit bigger. And we will try style display equals none. And oh, it worked. I never doubted that at all. So copy it, paste it into here. Oh, really? Can you not copy from a console? That seems very annoying. All right, there we go. I must not have done it right. So as a reminder to myself, hide the initial intro state. And if I remember correctly, to remove none, I'll just cheat here and say, I believe it should be block. So what we're going to do is use the same code for play state and make it block. All right. Here goes nothing. And because I doubt myself, just to make sure my click handler is working, click start, and here goes nothing. This is totally going to work. All right, we'll clear this. We'll reload. And boom. Never doubted it for a minute. So we're like half an hour in. I just got past the intro state. So I originally thought that I would potentially do tic-tac-toe. And I'm really, really glad I did not do that because even this is being pretty simple. So, all right, we need kind of a default state for our game. And most likely we're going to render this again and again. But I'm going to start simple. I'll go back to our HTML and say, let's say the game. That's horrible text, but it's something. And say, all right, choose one of the below. And that is the Alpine extension. I swear, a lot of my extensions are just being really annoying today. So choose one of the below /p and go away. And we will have our 3 buttons. And we'll say rock, paper, scissors. Scissors. And to make it easier to handle the click events for these, I'm going to do this. I'm going to call this button row. And I'm going to use a query selector to find the buttons under P class button row to add an event listener to them. So this is what you're going to pick. And then down here is going to be the outcome of some sort. And I'll type that. But you know what? I will say ID equals outcome. And we'll leave it blank for now. But we have a paragraph where we can then, drop in the result. I think we're actually almost close to being able to play. So I need an event listener on this. Now, what I'm going to do is do here, let buttons equals document.query selector all, and it was P class, I already forgot, button row, button. And this should match 3 buttons. And just to be sure, I am pretty sure that there's a length property. By the way, query selector all does not return an array, it returns like a DOM content list. So you can iterate over it. It's not a proper array, but length should work. We'll reload and click start game. And I messed up my my query selector. But you know what? We can go into our console and see what happens. So why did not work? So why did that not work? Let's try p content row. That returned 0. I do have a pair. Oh, you know what? Because it's not hidden because we show it there and it's visible now. Let's make sure. Oh, I'm a dummy. I don't have to even test anymore. Well, you know what? I don't have to, but we will do it. I used pound, which is for IDs, and the period is for classes. And we'll test one more time, make sure that works. We should get 3. All right, so reload, start the game again. We got 3 buttons. All right. So for each of these buttons, we are going to add an event listener that handles the click event. And, Brian has a good question here. Do you even need the P? No, you don't. So certainly just dot button row button would work. Instinctively, I feel like it adds a bit of specificity. It makes it more specific, and it feels a little bit safer, if that makes sense. So yeah, you don't need it, but it felt right to me. That's what I'm going for. All right. So for each of these, we are going to add an event listener that is going to be for click, and it will be, what do we call it? It's the player chose. Yeah, we'll call it player chose. We'll write this in a moment down here. Function player chose. So we need to know what they picked. And I'm going to show you there's a couple different ways we can do this. So this event, e.target, we'll take a look at that. So I did that a little bit quick, but basically for each of the buttons matched, I'm adding an event listener called player chose. And when you actually click that, I want to output the target, and I'll explain why after I do it. So reload, click, and we'll click paper. And there we go. That's a target. So I need to know what they picked. To get that information, I can use the inner text property because the target will be the button. I could have also used data attributes. So I could have done data chose equals rock, and then access it that way in a more data-centric way. But for right now, I can just use the text inside the button. Like that's good enough. Just keep in mind, like if I were to add emoji, to this, and I don't even know if there is a rock emoji. By the way, I love that you could see the emojis I use the most: cat, beer, and wine. But is there a rock emoji? There is. You know what? If I have time at the end, I'll add fancy emojis. But if I want to get what they chose, let chose equals e dot target dot inner text. Oh, nope, inner text, and we'll normalize it to lowercase. And let us see if that works. I'm just going to console that out. Reload, start the game, rock, paper, scissors. So I should also typically disable the other buttons as soon as you click. Again, like I don't know about y'all, but like when I work on a project, I think about 10 or 20 things like, oh, I should do X, Y, and Z. And no, that will distract me. But you know what I will do? I'll say to do, possibly disable other buttons. All right, so I know what the player chose. Now, what I need to do is to have the computer pick something. So I'm going to create just a kind of default list called option list. And be an array, rock, paper, and scissors. This will represent the default list. So I need to have the computer pick one, but and they are allowed to pick the same one I do. In that case, it's a tie. So I'm going to use a random function that picks from one to from picks one of the three options. Now I have used rand range and a random number and a range so many times that I have a function for it that I got off the internet, so it has to be safe. Get random int, and I will say let PC choice equals choices. What do I call it? Option list, and we want to pick it random int. Remember, arrays start at 0, so our range is from 0. Now I can just hard code this. I could have done option list dot length. In this case, the game is not going to change. I know there's a particular TV show that introduced a different version of rock, paper, scissors. I don't like that show and don't watch that show, so it's not going to change ever. So let's log out the PC choice and see what happens. In theory, I'm not picking a winner or ending the game or anything. We can just click and click and click and see what happens. All right. We go back, we reload, we start game, and I pick rock, and the computer pick rock. I pick paper, and at this point, either I'm pretty unlucky. All right, there we go. I guess I was unlucky at first. But you can see I picked rock, and the computer picked scissors. So we can do something with that. So now we have a we have a big if clause. And I kind of paused there because I'm kind of thinking of like how I want to render the result. And I have a paragraph. I had built that empty paragraph. I'm going to put it in there. So what I think I'm going to do, say let u1 equals true. We'll default to that and start our if thing. If chose equals rock and PC choice equals what beats rock, scissors, u1 equals false. Yeah, in theory, because I'm defaulting to true, I only need 3 of these, right? So if I chose, although I also need to handle the tie as well, but we'll get to that in a minute. If I picked paper, and actually, I'm sorry, if I pick rock and you pick paper, I lose. If I pick paper and you pick scissors, I lose. If I pick scissors and you pick rock, we lose. So now, to handle the tie, I use a Boolean, which is great for 2 states. It's not great for 3. So how about this? Let result equals empty string, and we will say result equals you lost. I'm not going to stress too much over this. I may come back and change this, but um, result equals, and I apologize for not being conformant there. I'm not adding a linter. All right, so we got this. Let's do 3 more. Actually, not even 3 more. If choice equals PC choice. Simple as that, right? PC choice. Result equals tie. All right. Again, before we even like print anything out, we will show it on screen. And now in theory, we could play a bunch of games here and just not actually render anything out. So I pick rock. They picked paper, I lost. I picked paper, they picked paper, we tied. Scissors, they picked rock. Have I won once? Paper, rock, result. Oh, nope. Result equals win. There we go. So I won once. All right. Yes, thank you. Brian, where were you 30 seconds ago when I typed that? Yes. All right. So now we can actually render it to the screen. So if you remember, we had that paragraph, ID equals outcome. I am going to, one thing I try to do is, again, if I work with a DOM item more than once, I like to cache it and use it again. So I'm going to do something up here. I'm going to say let uh, result. By the way, the dollar sign in front is something that I've seen other people do is when they have a variable that acts like a DOM item or like a jQuery item, they'll put a dollar sign in front. I like that. Like I know immediately that dollar sign something is a DOM element. So while we're in here, we will say result equals document dot query selector. And that was p class ID outcome. Cool. So now we can start doing this. I'm going to say result dot inner HTML equals template string. So we can do some HTML. We'll say the computer chose and PC choice. By the way, if you don't know what template strings are, just definitely let me know. I'd be happy to talk a bit more about them. And the result for you is result. And let's actually make this stand out a bit with a strong tag. There we go. All right, so in theory, we can reload and start and then enter HTML. So I typoed my this. So again, what I'll do is I will go into, oh, I know what this is. I know what this is. Let me test it first. No, I don't know what this is. Oh, the exact same mistake as before. ID versus class. So, comme ça, like that. Now we'll go back, and I think we may have a functioning game. Yes, so we'll do it again. And we got proper ties. I do think I should add what you chose. I mean, you clicked, but you may run the game so fast that you may forget. So you chose, I called it chose. And there we go. Now let's see what the computer chose. And we'll go back. We'll reload, start game, and voila, you chose scissors. The computer chose scissors. Result for you is tie. And there we go. And I'm not happy with the English right there, but I'm not going to deal with it too much. All right. So 44 minutes, and we have a real game. There's one last bit I want to do. So there's a lot more I could do. Definitely some nice styling. I will point out my buddy Todd Sharp shared a CSS framework called Milligram, which you just kind of drop in and it makes everything nice. Just that improves things a little bit. I could definitely add that. But with me trying to wrap up in the next 5 minutes, let's quickly add a tracker where all it does is keep track of the number of games that you have won and lost. So we will say let games equals 0, let 1 equals 0. Every time you win, we will add to it. So if result equals win, what did I call it? Wins. I call it 1, 1 plus plus. And we're going to do some math here in a little bit, but for right now, we'll keep it simple. We'll say games. Oh, and let's actually increment games. Game plus, and I called it games. Yes. All right. So we'll say games. We'll render it out, and we'll say 1 like so, and go back. Drink water. And I typoed. That was a test for you, Brian. Why didn't you say something? Games. All right. Reload. And start game. And I'm just going to click like crazy. And it's working. Cool. So let's actually make this nice. All right. And we will say, you have played X games. And I am not going to bother with the game versus games. And say, you have played X games and you have won like so. All right. So let us reload and play and go crazy. Cool. Now we have live tracking. Last thing that I'm going to do is add a percentage 1. And this is the math part. This is why I failed the technical interview. So it should be played 10 games. I won 8, so 8 divided by 10. So 1 divided by games. And I know I need to multiply by 100 and probably drop the floating point decimal, but we'll keep it simple. Your win-lose rate is percentage 1. All right, so this should show up, but probably have a long string of decimal points at the end. Reload again, start game. Yep, my rate of 0. 25. All right, percentage. Is that right? I've won 2 out of 5 games, 40%. Yep, I just want to add the actual percentage sign. And I still think I'm going to have a problem with decimals, but let's see what happens. Yep, there you go. You saw it. So we will math dot. Actually, we'll do it up here. Math dot floor or seal. We'll say floor. I'll round down. Final reload and start game and click like crazy. I have to win 1. You've got to be kidding me. There we go. All right. And not seeing any decimal points. And I call that a win. You know, I have 2 minutes left before I want to stop, but I'm just going to stop here. Maybe next time we can add milligram in and make it look a little bit nicer. But we have a game that I need to stop clicking. Ray, you can stop playing. Last thing we do is shut down the web server and git add CSS, git add app. I could have just start a star, but too late now. And then commit initial release of award-winning groundbreaking game. The typo and git push. All right, so I know somebody asked about the GitHub repository. It is And I will go to my banners and show right there. Technically it will be the play a game one folder in there. Make that a little bigger so you could see it right here. If I wanted to, I could even turn on GitHub's web publishing thing, and you could play it live. I will do that when I'm done after I hang up on y'all, because that takes like 5 to 10 minutes for some reason. But I imagine having a lot of web-based demos, so that would probably be a good thing to do. So if you're watching this in the future, I will share in the YouTube description the web accessible version of this game. So if you really wanted to, you could play it yourself and hide that comments and remove the stage so it's just me. So that is all I have. That was both scary and fun. I hope you liked that. Feel free to send me your comments about what I built, what you thought, or sharing examples of games that you have built. I like games, so if you share examples with me, you'll make me very happy. But I appreciate everybody showing up. And I hope to see you again in 2 weeks after I figured out what I'm going to talk about in 2 weeks. I appreciate your time, your attention, all that. Be safe out there and have a great rest of your day.